Welcome to the Tao of Pizza, where we feature top logistics leaders, entrepreneurs, and supply chain innovators and share their inspiring stories with a holistic twist.
Mark Hiddleson here, host of the Tao of Pizza podcast, where I talk with top industry innovators in the warehousing, logistics, and supply chain business with a holistic twist. And before I introduce today's guest, Drew Hendricks, this episode is brought to you by Specialized Storage Solutions. Now, I've been in the logistics and storage industry for several decades, developing and building the systems and solutions that evolve with our clients' growing needs. We provide industry-leading warehouse storage solutions nationwide. So basically what that means, if you have a warehouse that needs rack, shelving, carts, conveyors, or mezzanines, we help with the design, the engineering, installation, inspections, and repairs to help our clients optimize their logistics operations. And it's funny, Drew, sometimes people don't even realize we can actually help with the permit acquisition process. So yeah, we deal with the red tape so that you don't have to. We take a holistic look at your entire business supply chain ecosystem to develop the resources for continually improving your operation. To learn more, visit specialracks.com or give us a call at 707-732-3892. And just for podcast listeners, I give out my personal email, Mark Hiddleson at AOL. Yes, I still use AOL, and yes, I'm proud of it. If you're ready to take your warehouse storage and retrieval systems to the next level, drop me a line. And there's one more thing I always love to give a shout out, and I want to give a shout out to Dr. Jeremy Wise of Rise 25. He introduced me to today's guest. And what they do at Rise 25 is they help their clients contribute to their top 200 business relationships with strategic partners through podcasting. Jeremy introduced me to Drew Hendricks, and coincidentally, last week's guest, Desmond Clark, 12-year NFL veteran, author, motivational speaker, and the founder of Bear Down Logistics. And you can check out that episode too. So thanks, Dr. J. So today's guests, we're joined by Drew Hendricks. He's the founder of Nimbletoad and Barrels Ahead, two agencies that help brands grow through smart digital marketing and storytelling. With a background in philosophy and a deep history in the wine industry, he brings a rare blend of critical thinking, industry insight, and technical expertise. He's also the host of Legends Behind the Craft, a podcast spotlighting innovators in the beverage world. And he actually hosted me on that. So welcome, Drew. Welcome to the Tao of Pizza.
Oh, welcome. Well, thank you so much. To be on this side of the podcast. It's so honored to be on your show. Yeah. So yeah, for people listening, Mark was actually on our Legends Behind the Craft show a few years ago, and I was so happy you reached out again. Yeah. So I run Barrels Ahead and Nimbletoad. Barrels Ahead is a wine and craft marketing agency, and Nimbletoad is in the mental health and behavioral health space. So I kind of like to say that we handle both sides of the mental happiness equation, depending on how you need it. The projected outcome's the same on either. So you figure out storytelling and marketing message. That's how I justify the two agencies.
I love it. And so share a little bit. Share a little bit about how you got into this industry, and I'm curious specifically about the Nimbletoad. And I'll turn myself in. I didn't do enough homework on Nimbletoad to realize.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, Nimbletoad's the main agency, so it's the iteration of a few. And to go back, way back in the storytelling, when I graduated from college with a degree in Attic Greek and philosophy, my goal was to be a professor. But I found myself in San Francisco biding some time while the person I was with was in law school, and ended up getting a job at a wine store as a stock boy. I was 21 and ready to go, and turned out I had a really good palate. I ended up staying there for 10, 12 years and became a wine buyer, and then developed one of the first wine auction sites that predated eBay using Perl scripts. And yeah, it was incredible. And then started building websites for independent wine stores, which then just progressed through one agency into another. And then Nimbletoad became is the latest iteration back in 2008 that just started as a general agency to just help businesses across the board, especially small businesses, to compete with the better leveraged chain stores. So we've always really tried to support the underdog, and support that kind of just entrepreneurial quest.
Yeah.
And so that was the evolution of Nimbletoad. And the name comes from, at the time I was Googling, this predates Google, but at the time I was searching around for a trademark, and I did a search for Nimbletoad, and only one search result came up. It was a quote from Wind in the Willows. So it seemed like it was a good name, and it was a little whimsical. And we came up with the tagline: most websites are toads, we make them nimble. And now, what, 17 years have gone by, and we've kind of really focused, niche down into that mental health, and also training institutes. So it's not, we we help therapists grow from a single practice to a group practice, or from a solo practice to a multi-location. So and then from there, helping those therapists set up training programs and institutes. So we have the pleasure of working with some of the top, the EMDR Institute, Synergetic Play Therapy Institute, and some of the better ones, helping them promote their training programs, and helping them just disseminate their message and their story.
Oh.
On the other side is Barrels Ahead. Barrels Ahead, since I never left the wine industry, it's always been a passion for me, and I just can't shake that bug. So about 6-7 years ago, I spun off another agency that still sits under Nimbletoad, called Barrels Ahead, where we help wineries craft their story to sell more wine direct to consumers. And really so the one thing that's similar between the two is most wineries are pretty, they don't embrace technology quickly. They're really into just making their wine and just doing their craft. So we help add that technical aspect and help them bring that story to a digital life.
That is awesome. And you're right. I love the way you framed it in a way. It is across industry that I've learned. And I think it's in the wine industry, there's so much focus. I mean, it takes so much energy. A lot of our friends are a winemaker, and we just went for 2 weeks on a wine tasting. I didn't realize it was like a wine tasting class trip for 2 weeks in Argentina. But
I would love to go to Argentina.
But there's so much involved and there's tech in that. I mean, they're high tech when it comes to the science of the soils and the water systems and ecosystems. And then the technology, it's like, well, I don't have the bandwidth to figure out the new stuff. So that's a great niche. And the DTC, we do a lot in direct to consumer. And I think a lot of the markets are shrinking. I think that's going to grow. So that's enough. So would you mind saying, and I want to jump back into the mental health thing. I love that.
Oh yeah.
You got me excited about Nimbletoad and the mental health, because wow, what a need for that. But on the direct to consumer side, say a little bit about trends you see happening, or ways that things are slow right now. I've heard the wine industry is slow, and I never like to perpetuate that story, but where's the opportunity? Is what
the story is true. Wine,
yeah.
we are in a downtrend. We are, for those of us that love wine, the good thing is there's gonna be a lot of cheap California wine, because there's so much. They planted so much. Yeah. And people are drinking less, but those people that are still drinking are going to have access to this supply of grapes, a surplus of grapes. So for 20 years, the industry just kept growing. And now we're in a downtrend, I think it's very, very healthy, because there's a lot of players in this game that really have no business being in the game. So if we see a little bit of consolidation, or we see just some people hanging up their hats saying, this is not for me, that's not a bad thing. We need to have the industry refocused. And what I've seen the trend being is that, and this is where we're helping people, the wineries, is finding the right person, because the people are still there. But we're trying to do, and I have to actually give a shout out to Polly over at Five Forests. There was a seminar she gave last year at the wine sales convention, talking about the shift between targeting demographics and targeting psychographic profiles. And that's really what wineries need to grasp. And I've expanded on that, and we built on that. And I try to infuse that in all of the kind of websites and marketing we do. And what that means, in very short, is for the last 20 years, we always talked about the boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, and we just target age groups. But in reality, most individuals transcend an age group. You have we're both Gen Xers,
Yeah.
yet I identify with a lot of the themes and just fun that Gen Z and millennials are having. Conversely, there's a lot of Gen Zs that might be identifying further up. So the idea is really to figure out who your tribe is, who your core audience is, and forget about the age group. I mean, I went to a Metallica concert a couple of years ago, and I mean, the age group spanned the whole gamut. They
Yeah.
were there to see Metallica. Metallica isn't targeting 20-year-olds, 50-year-olds, or 60-year-olds. They're targeting the people that like Metallica.
Yeah. And we saw him at Bottle Rock, and the lead singer, he doesn't look like a rocker anymore. He looks like a conservative, like contractor. Like he's got the same haircut as me. He's like short, clean cut, shaved, but he's still rocking it. Like, and that was a
Yeah,
blast. Did you go to Bottle Rock, or do you see him somewhere else?
I've never been. It was down here in Southland, LA area.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. We just had that last weekend. It's every year. It's right across the street from my office. So we always go all in for Bottle Rock every year. Um,
Oh, that I had a couple colleagues that were there. I saw their social posts. Looks like a fantastic time.
it's a great venue. So the opportunity and the psycho and I love that you're bringing up. I don't know why, but the generational Gen X boomer thing. It hasn't been
Mhm.
coming up a lot, but it's come up in our family, and our kids tease us because like if I ever can't figure out how to use my phone or do an app or something, he's like, "Okay,
Mhm.
boomer," and I go,
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm not a boomer. I'm Gen X. I'm
Mhm.
Atari. I'm iPhone. Like it's like we had Walkman, Ghetto Blaster. I'm like Star Wars. I'm Gen X. Okay,
I
so
have to push. Yeah, I completely agree. I don't want to be, I mean, not that I have anything against boomers, but
me neither.
for a millennial, anybody above them is a boomer.
So my youngest is really clever. He's 21, so he looked it up and he looked and he goes, okay. He goes, so you're 63 to 85. He's like, oh, he goes, so you're younger than the boomers. He goes, so you're the baby boomers. I was like, no, no. And I was arguing with him for a minute and I realized he knew it wasn't true, but that it was funny.
Hmm.
So we just got, so that's our family. So share a little bit more. I like the psychographic because like me too, I'm like you, I like to identify with like I still look, there's a picture of me when I was 27 and somebody was like,
Hmm.
wow, you used to be really different. And I looked at that picture and I'm like, I feel the same as I
Hmm.
did when I was 27, 28.
We
So
do.
sure, what's the
I
psychographic?
do
What's
too.
more?
Well, here would be an example, and this is a different project that we're doing. You figure out your so if you I come from the California surf skate culture, and I still try to surf as much as I can. Haven't skated in a few years, but also snowboarding and a lot of live music and stuff. So there's that certain something called California culture. And you go out and you're still surfing. Most of the people in their 50s, they're in their 40s. We're all hanging out, or we go to a live band, or we go to a skate contest. You see across the board, people have
Yeah,
not stopped skating. Tony Hawk,
yeah.
he's still rocking it. There's a psychographic profile, and you might see it embodying like 805 beer. That's
Mhm.
really, they're not targeting any real age group. They're targeting the person that likes to fish, that likes to surf, that likes to skate. That's that tribe. That's the people that are buying 805 beer. The wineries need to start thinking about that without sort of thinking about why are 21-year-olds not drinking alcohol anymore? Or how do we target 40-year-olds to make them buy our beer? That's the wrong question. The question is, who do we align ourselves with? Because you've got to go a little bit beyond just being a small family-owned winery or a small local brewery. You need to have some sort of a foundation beyond that. And there is the very rare case where you got wine for wine's sake, where you're just evaluating the wine in a vacuum, and
Yeah.
then suddenly that's your tribe is the Psalms and the people that are geeking out on it. But not every winery can fit that tribe. You can't just create a 99 point wine and have it be a success. Most people are in that trying to figure out that 10 to $30 bottle of wine and who to get them to buy it. And they can't just talk about the wine in the glass and the specifics of the vineyard and the event. You need to make the whole wine an experience that someone wants to add to their life to help them further solidify their kind of lifestyle and who they're presenting themselves as.
Wow. And it is, and the wine does come with way more energy. Like, so I've lived in the Napa Valley for 27 years.
Hmm.
And before I moved here, I was like a Bud Light guy, right? It was either Bud
Hmm.
Light, and then I was Bud Light because then you could look down on the Coors Light guys.
Uh,
I was 26 years old, and so there's that kind of a competition with living here, and I would have never considered myself a wine person, and now it's like by living here, it's almost you don't have a choice. Like I've just embraced it. People ask me if I'm in the wine industry, and the question I usually ask is, I'm on the consumption side,
uh-huh.
which I think is the most important side. And we do a little bit. We deal with more of a distribution, and we help not really wineries, but their warehouses, their distribution system, shipping
Hmm.
system. But what are some of the things? The question I wanted to ask you is how, and I can kind of see it. I would love to hear this answer, but how does your background in Greek philosophy translate into figuring kind of some of these things out?
Well, it helps in that. Well, I actually attribute all the everything I know or all the skills that I have with marketing and setting up the organizational flow of a site to philosophy. Because if you go back to, you read, let's just even go back to the simplest case of Plato and Socrates, where you have a dialogue, and Socrates walks people through. He knows the answer at the end. He plays dumb and asks a bunch of questions, and the people answer the questions, and then suddenly at the end they've realized their own answer. But he guided them. His conversation guided them, and that's the core tenet. That's the core. That is funnels. That is top of the funnel to bottom of the funnel in its essence. The idea is when, just like Socrates, when he's meeting somebody down at the Piraeus and he starts a conversation with them, they're at the top of the funnel. They don't know where they are. And he can't just immediately tell them this is what it is. He has to guide the conversation down and bring them through it where they come to that self realization. And marketing's the same way. And storytelling on a website is the same sort of fashion, where suddenly the person, as they go down it, it all makes sense and they've come to the decision themselves.
And so it's just an underlying flow. And I love it that you say, let's start with the simple stuff. And
Hmm.
because it is kind of complicated. It's funny. It's the simplest stuff, but it is the Socratic method. I mean, most we learn in like high school.
Hmm.
I don't think most people really get it. Like you obviously get it. Like that's just a pattern of flow of how we communicate, developing.
Hmm.
You use that same model for developing relationships, right? When you get to nobody, you ask questions like, how can we align with our values?
Hmm.
Or do our values align? Oh, is this going to be a good time? Do I even like having a good time? Like sometimes I'm too much of a good time. People are like, oh, this guy is too far off the map, you know?
Hmm.
So, how does that now? So the same thing I want to go. So that's a good segue, I think, into the Nimbletoad because
Hmm.
as you use that craft, I think in mental health, I think that's really important because like if you're finding a provider and, I use coaches for everything and I've hired
Hmm.
coaches for my business, for everything. Um, the hardest thing it's been for me to do is to reach out and find like a mental health counselor. Like it's easy to
Hmm.
find a business coach, or at least for me. And
Hmm.
so when you get into that mental health space, which is probably it's the most important, I mean, I would say it's probably the most important. It's the beginning of your physical health, really starts with your mental health. And it's
Hmm.
hard to find, from somebody who's done the exercise. I was
Hmm.
shocked because like, oh, I can hire a coach. I can do this. I can
Hmm.
find somebody. And it's maybe because it's more personal. But share a little bit about that. How does that Socratic dialogue um, work in that and help that?
Very, very, very similarly. In fact, there's two different things. So you've got a mental health. So let's just take couples therapy, for example.
Yeah,
Most people, by the time they are trying to go to couples therapy, the decision's being made, and they're just really looking for someone to validate their decision one way or the other to get a divorce. So
wow.
people need to understand why they're actually going to couples therapy and what the different outcomes are. But it's also educating, like for couples therapy, the top of the funnel would be, are you going to go with Gottman style therapy, which would be more of an evidence-based scientific approach, or are you going to go with Imago, which is going to be more emotional? And there's all these different modalities of
Yeah,
couples therapy. And the idea is that you're not hiring a therapist. You're finding a guide to guide you through that modality. And the idea for the top of the funnel there is to educate those couples to make them understand that it's not this one, or that one. There's these different schools of thought. and then bring them down. So once they decided that, who's the best person, and then they submit a lead. But on another level is the kind of the institute work that we do, and a lot of these modalities, and I call modality different schools of therapy. We'll stick with couples therapy, but there's also EMDR therapy, and a lot of these modalities of therapy were founded 30, 40 years ago, and the founders have since passed or moved on, and then they've grown in popularity so much so that if you're a therapist just graduating from college and you want to add something like EMDR therapy to your practice, you don't know all these schools of thought. You don't know the original one. You don't know one from the other because they're all proclaiming the best, the best, the best.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is to try to take them through that same thought process down the funnel, make them vendor aware, make them service aware, so that they can make an educated decision on which path they want to go down.
That's brilliant. And so what you're doing, and to me, is like you're educating your client, and it's fun. So my limitation is I do have the background. I have a master's degree in holistic health education. And so one of those things was taking different schools of psychology. And to me, transpersonal psychology is a way to kind of integrate all of the psychologies and really all of the ologies. But each one, there's a really famous author called Michael Murphy. He's the founder of Esalen. And one of the great quotes, because they've hosted millions in the original, like Fritz Perls, and they've had Alan Watts as a guest, and Erna Werhard from Est was there. And he goes, the one I've heard him ask, like, what was the one thing that kept Esalen going, kept people curious? He goes, no one ever played capture the flag. And that's what you're talking about. Like, everyone goes like, well, you have to do this, and this is the best. Like, we've developed it. And it's like, really, none of them are the best. It's like what works for each individual person, because we're all so different.
Yeah.
So like, I'm looking for someone, I want to do EMDR, ACT, and some other, and involve some Jungian transfers, and maybe even dream. So like, I'm looking for a therapist that has this rainbow flavors. So what you're doing actually helps people figure that out. Am I
helping the companies that we work, help them present their value statement? Very similar to a winery. You go down a wine road and there's 20 wineries. Which one do you pull into? The one that resonates most. It's the winery that presents itself in a way that aligns with what you're looking for. It's helping all the therapists and the institutes align themselves so that those people that are evaluating them can see their full story and make the decision that way, versus just kind of proclaiming us or we're the best or whatnot.
Yeah, it is. I have that because there's a lot of things that we are the best in, and like everybody says they're the best. So it's hard. It's like, well, where's the evidence? Right. And I think in therapy, it's hard to point to the evidence. And then another thing that I've, just read the statistics is like, it works 20% of the time, or there's some really low, like you were saying, is because couples go in thinking like, just justify the decision I've already made.
Yeah. I mean, 20% of the time it works 100% of the time.
Right. That's a good way. To me, it always, like, even like, there's no way to say it doesn't work. I mean, it just, if you've tried something, even if it doesn't work, then it worked because you tried something, and so that's off the table, because a lot of people never try anything. Then you got a 0%.
Yeah, you go into therapy, and I mean, we ask this in business all the time when we're talking to new clients. What does success look like for you? I mean, in therapy, I don't know if you can come in there going, we want to stay together, or we don't want to stay together, or I want to resolve these. That's the underlying ideas of success. But that's not really the focus of what therapy is. The focus of therapy is to take you down that path where you're going to figure out success as you go down that path, because your definition of success is going to change the more you work through whatever you're trying to work through.
That's your definition of success. Because I was just somebody asked me a question like, how did you get to where you were in the industry? And it was like, well, I started with the idea that I wanted to get here. I wanted to be in the top 1%, or the best people with facility layout, warehouse, and design. If I hadn't had that as a goal, I wouldn't have gone through all this stuff. So would you be willing to share a little bit about your journey and what you wanted to create when you created this, and what your version of it was, and where you're at now, like, and what you're looking that's the other thing too. I have a book coming out, so I'm kind of
Mhm.
looking for the next 5 to 10 years. I've been working on this
Mhm.
project for. So you had me on 2 years ago. So what I've been
Yeah,
saying,
we were talking about it.
and it was done. So I've been saying this project took me 8 years to complete, and I've been saying that for 2 years. So what that means is that it took 10 years
Mhm.
because I thought I was done when I was on yours because I had a finished manuscript. I had three
Mhm.
publishers I was talking to, but there's just a lot of work. And at some of the times, what kept me going is just like I said I was going to do this, whether it was hard or whether it felt good. Or like there were times it
Mhm.
felt good and there were times it sucked. Um, but that was a goal. So to share a little bit about with your companies and the success you've had, like what was the original um, what did you call it? The definition of success? That wasn't the word. You used a great uh, word for
Hmm.
the result you want to create, the result you want to generate.
Yeah, well, I think your definition of success evolves as you go down that road. And
Yeah.
the part of where you need to find the fulfillment and the happiness is it's the road, it's the journey. It's always the journey. There's never an end point because anytime you reach an end point, there's still a horizon. So
Yeah.
you're always looking towards an infinite horizon. And the biggest mistake a lot of people make is they're like, one day I will have a $10 million agency, then I'm going to be happy. Or one day I'm going to do such and such. And that's just a milestone. And the idea is that that's a false sense of success. That's a that's a milestone that you should definitely take happiness in and consider it a success, but it's not. Most people have this ephemeral idea of success that is attached to a tangible thing, and they're never going to realize that. So for me, my idea of success is if I can, maybe not every day, but most days, if I can finish the day knowing that I actually helped someone, I actually took a business and moved it forward or helped those people on their journey go forward, I had a good day. And if I can just keep on doing that, that I'm doing what I like. It's solving problems. It's seeing other people that are stuck get unstuck by whether it's a website campaign or a marketing campaign, achieve their goals. That's where I'm happy.
Nice. I love that. One of the things I wrote in my book in the marketing piece is I wrote this book to help people unstick stuckness because we all get
Mhm.
stuck. I mean, like you said, I love the way you said some days too, because
Uh-huh.
it's every day is it's unrealistic. I read this thing one time that there's this guy was keeping track of a lot of statistics. He was a scientist, but he was keeping track of good days and bad days of his whole
Mhm.
life. And he said there's usually like 27 good days for every 23 bad days was the way it was. It
Mhm.
was like, hey, look on the bright side. There's four more good days than bad days. And so, in a lifetime, it kind of makes every day okay or whatever,
It is.
accept what
And,
is.
and I had a lot of thought about that good days and bad days. So, I mean, talking to my wife about it, I mean, I have a lot of bad days, but I've kind of pinpointed exactly what is a bad day and what
Uh-huh.
is a good day. And the good days for me is when I can go through the day and actually did what I set out to do.
Ooh.
The bad days is when I set out to do something and then I end up reacting to everybody else's stuff the whole day. And I finished the day. I did help people, but I didn't move anything I wanted to do forward.
Yeah.
So as long as I can have more days than not pushing what I had planned to do, that's a good day.
Yeah. Because those are the days that you lay in bed like this at 2 o'clock in the morning. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I didn't do this. Awesome. So
Mhm.
share a couple things. So how do you have some ideas, processes, practices you do to keep you from getting sidetracked? Because everybody gets sidetracked, right? There's emergencies. And I even went
Mhm.
through a phase where like I'm really good at dealing with emergencies. So I created a lot of emergencies. Like I can come in and
Uh-huh.
save the day. But then you're living in crisis mode is not really healthy. But share a little bit about things you do or practice or process for
I try to, so I, People probably can't see this unless they're on
yeah,
video. I'm a big believer in Michael Hyatt's full focus planner. Of all the digital stuff that I do, you can see them all back there.
yeah, yeah.
The one thing I do is the day before is I write down my big three things that I wish to accomplish. Then I write down all the tasks. And we have a full project management thing through ClickUp. So everything's digital too, but I like the tangible writing it down. I write down my schedule. And then on the left-hand side, it's blank today. On the left-hand side, every day I try to do I reflect. So I say I have a section reflect and I write everything that I reflected about. And then I did what I learned. So I have 2 or 3 sentences about what I learned and what to change. And so I have 3 or 4 sentences on that and top success. So that right at the end is the kind of the daily win. And I force myself to write a full page every day. And that prevents me from going back, or prevents that cycle of where you start thinking about the same things every single day. And at
Yeah.
least you've got it on paper. It also allows you to go back to times in your life when you felt like you were doing a lot more and read that journal and see what the daily win was like that day. Or times that you were like, I used to feel like I did a lot more. And then go back and read and you're like, no, I wasn't. I just, hindsight seemed a lot more productive.
Yeah. I love that about journaling. It's one thing, that's another thing we talked about. I think before we were on, we were talking about the more content we create online, whether it was blogs
Mhm.
or journals or podcasts, to use AI. But before we go in that, I want to say something. The journaling process
Mhm.
and writing it down. I mean, isn't there something like, I don't believe in magic or anything, but there is something magical about writing.
It is that pencil to paper, the tactile feel, the fact that it's coming from something that is intangible to tangible on the page. You can't duplicate that by just typing it out.
Yeah,
Typing it out does not have the same emotional and physical release that writing it down does.
yeah. And it was, so I've done a lot. There's a lot of research on too about writing things down. Like I've geeked
Mhm.
out on that. It's just like, I know I'm the type of person, if I hear something's a good idea, I just start trying it. And it's like, well, let's
Mhm.
see. I'll do it for 10 days. And, I've been journaling for probably, I don't know, 20 years at least, but it was 24 years because when my daughter was born, I had this state change of my life. It's like, there's people you can't explain. You have kids.
Mhm. Oh, no, I
Yeah.
don't. Three
Oh,
dogs.
yeah. Well, then it's hard to explain, but when I had, first of all, the radiologist had said it was going to be a boy. So I was expecting a boy. And then I was in the delivery room. I actually delivered my daughter,
Oh,
and it was
wow.
a girl. And I
Oh,
mean, I just started bawling and it's like, I'm going to be, and now I hear it's like popular to be a girl dad.
mhm.
But I'm like, for 2 weeks, I was just on a cloud. And I'm like, I have to start writing this stuff down. I mean, because there's
Mhm.
no way it's going to last. And like, this is great. And I still have that journal. I can see it. It's right over there. But that just, while she was growing up, I started doing that, and it just evolved. It evolved into taking notes in business, doing stuff like you do, writing things down. I
Mhm.
have a gratitude list that I write out. Um,
Mhm.
but there's nothing. I love hearing you say that. But I had somebody I was coaching one time who goes, "Well, that doesn't work for me." Like writing it down, I'm like, well, either it's kind of like the 20% thing. You're like, right? It might be a 90% for me and a 60 or a 70, but like
Mhm.
it changes something, right?
Mhm.
When you write it
Oh,
down.
for sure. It does. I mean, all the task lists, there's people that love to follow them, and we follow a digital task list, but there's something that's once removed from you than to have some actually have the list in front of you that you can actually physically write an X. I did that
Yeah.
versus checking off the bullet point in ClickUp.
Yeah, there is some satisfaction. I go back and look at some of the X's are a lot bigger than the other ones.
Mhm.
That's awesome. So, um, I'd love to hear, because in your business, AI must be changing at a rapid pace. I was surprised. I've been studying it for like probably since I got into podcasting, so like 2 years.
Mhm.
Um, Share a little bit about what you see and how you're using that to serve your clients.
It has absolutely just upended the digital marketing industry, especially content marketing. And for that matter, even the way people search right now on the internet, they used to be able to go down through the list, but now Google, Bing, they're going to suggest AI is going to suggest the answer for you, and people aren't even going down to the content. AI is pulling content from different sources and giving you the answer. Like I just Googled how to build a support wall. I've got to take out a load bearing wall, and I got an AI answer on how to do it. Is it right? I don't know, but it kind of gave me the steps, and I didn't. I knew enough to have it subconsciously think about it for the rest of the day. And I didn't go down to the construction company's blog article about how to do a support wall. When I actually do one, I'll probably go to one.
Right.
But a lot of people are getting those answers, or physical therapist near me, or best flat fee realtor in California. AI is starting to suggest those answers. So that's just being pervasive, writing that content. But then this whole overflow of content, it it's finding the right content and actually not discounting what AI comes up with. Because if you can, over the course of the last 3 years, you're now can fully feed a full project into ChatGPT with every single previous article that was written and the whole website, all the data, and if you train the prompt under the proper writing style, you're going to get a piece of web copy that is as good as an editor. And then what you then do is we have a human editor that goes in and refines it and makes sure that it is on tone. But what it's done is it's increased the amount of content coming out through wineries, through just across every industry by like 20, 30 fold. Before it was like, used to be a big deal to publish a 3,000 word blog article. Now you can publish one in 5 minutes if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have it set up right and you've put in, like I talked about with like I've used it to upload podcasts and then ask ChatGPT to do a write up on the pod. Like that's how I used to write mine all out.
Mm-hmm.
I turn myself in for that. And then I thought they were pretty good. That's my thing with AI emails. And now I'm using it on emails. Like only the people who listen to this podcast are going to know it. But I used to think, oh, I'm a writer. I can write this better. But then I think it's Gemini. One of them's just hooked up to my Gmail account. And it'll say, do you want any suggestions? And depending if it's a good day or a bad day.
It's because
wow, this is better. It just automatically polishes it. And I'm like, yeah, that's really more what I wanted to say was that. So
it's becoming pervasive. Like I'll hammer out an email, then I'll put it through ChatGPT, make this clearer and say it better. And then I'll give it through a few revisions. Then I go paste it into Gmail. Then Gemini adds their 3 cents on to what it's supposed to be.
Oh yeah.
And then Grammarly is telling me, nope, that one's not good. Do this one. So now I've had three versions. It's just like too much.
Right.
But each one takes it down the path, and there's a human that's making a judgment call. Yeah, no, I actually wanted to say that. No, I don't want an M dash. Like the funny thing is, ChatGPT loves to put that M dash in everything. Then you paste the email into Gmail, and Grammarly hates M dashes. They're going to turn every M dash into a period or a comma.
Comma. Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a little bit of an AI war going on with how content should be written. But beyond content, though, I do want to say that AI has done tremendous work in the wine industry for like helping identify and like nurture club memberships. Like you can use an AI agent and we're using AI agents to analyze club membership to figure out who might be at risk of leaving the club, who might want a downsell or upsell, and then send that list to someone in the tasting room who maybe can make 25 calls that day because it's a slow day and try to just say hello or say, just want to see how things are going and keep that nurturing contact. So then AI is a valuable tool on that to help the humans run their winery better and identify issues.
And then if you get that phone call, it's more of a human touch because we're getting texts from the wine clubs we're involved in, or some of them. Sometimes the phone call is a nice touch, especially today, and especially if it's something you want. I mean, most of the ones that we're involved in, we want. We had one. It was funny. We did have one winery called us the next day. It was kind of a fundraiser thing, and people had a lot to drink, and they said like 3/4 of the people who signed up didn't really want to sign up. Are you sure you want to sign up? And my wife laughed as she loves us. Like, no, we like your winery. It's I should mention them. It's Reynolds. It's a small family winery, and that's kind of how we've connected with the people, and we like the smaller brands. Not like it's great the ones people have heard of, like Camus and Silver Oak or whatever. But we love, kind of like you were saying, the niche, the small entrepreneurs building something, really cool. So
I'm going to go one more story about AI and a funny use case that I heard. Okay. So I just came back from the Commerce 7 Developer Day, and somebody mocked up a model of how it might be used within. So Commerce 7 is a wine point of sale system. It's what we use to sell wines online. It's also used in the tasting rooms. And they're big on having an app store and bolting things on. So one of the developers for Commerce 7 integrated Commerce 7 with ChatGPT that was then linked to the consumer's profile page. So imagine yourself at a tasting room and imagine you're working behind the tasting room. They can't always have the most they have qualified people, but you walk into the tasting room, the person behind the counter needs to figure out some way to identify with you. They can pull up the list, and based on the age, psychographic, demographic, and tasting history, this prompt will then suggest 3 or 4 intro statements to say to the person.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
it does that leading conversation. You can also tweak it to say, like, if it's Gen Z, it'll like throw out some Gen Z comments that you can like
The ones
describe the
that I don't
wine.
know what they mean. That's the other reason my son calls me a boomer is they have these word things that they say, or I say it by accident. They're like, "Dad, you don't realize that means something else now." It's like
I thought it was a fantastic idea because so many times I'll
brilliant.
go into the tasting room. It click with some people, but a lot of times it's just awkward. And the person behind the counter, they need to be empowered to be able to interact because once they get the conversation going, it's usually flows nicely. But you need that kind of Kickstarter, and to have that kind of tool behind for tasting room managers would be very powerful and help get their team up to speed quicker.
That's brilliant because that's one of the biggest complaints I hear about the Napa Valley. And now there's other like the foothills has a growing of California foothills has a growing
Mhm.
Washington, Oregon State, Southern California. And people complain most about the Napa is the tasting room experience where they felt like they were being talked down to or
That Napa's got a huge issue. It's riding on the fact that it's such awesome wines coming from there.
yeah,
They're they need to pivot if they want to continue. And I'll say that very boldly.
yeah,
You need to be able to purchase a glass of wine and not just sip. Most people, when they're deciding to go out, most consumers, I mean, people go travel the world to go to Napa and have the $200 tasting, but every other wine region, if you're going to go to a winery for the day, you're usually going with a group of people. Well, probably only half the group actually likes wine. The other people maybe don't like wine.
yeah,
Maybe they want to do something. So the winery has to offer something for all the people in the group. Otherwise, they're going to pick a different place. They're going to pick some place like a brewery that has cornhole, that has soda, that has pizza,
yeah.
that can accommodate children. Whereas a winery standing up in a tasting room and having 3 sips is only going to resonate with the true wine geek.
Right. Yeah. Who wants to be put down?
Mhm. Yeah.
That's what they're. But one of the wineries I love, and I wasn't on board at first. I've been here 27 years, and we had family from Arizona. They're super like cowboys. They're not wine, but they're in Napa. They wanted a wine taste, and my wife said, "Well, let's go to Visa Tui." I was like,
Mhm.
"Tui." I was like, "That's the one with all the limos and picnic and park." I was like, "That's always packed and everything." Like, let's go to but we ended up going right because any
Mhm.
time my wife ever said something, I took her advice. And there's a reason it's packed. It's
Mhm.
awesome. It's like you said, they have an awesome deli.
Mhm.
They don't put you down. It's a culture. And I had the chance about 5 or man, I'm on longer. I met the president, Tom Davies,
Mhm.
and he like their culture is his DNA, like the kind of person he is, the kind of
Mhm.
atmosphere they've created. And it's just like a magnet, and people go, and they have something for everybody. Like they have a
Mhm.
Gamay Beaujolais. My
Mhm.
cousin Tina from Arizona loves. We send her a case every year. But they create the experience. And from the moment you get there, you're not being put down, but you're like put on a pedestal and lifted.
Mhm. And
So I
that's
will
that
say,
psychographic profile. They're creating an experience that people can latch onto and want to belong to,
yeah,
versus just the wine just out of context. Wine in a vacuum is one of those issues, or wine in the context of someone else's really fancy mansion, where you feel like you're tasting wine in their private little testament to themselves.
yeah, yeah. Or a friend of ours, Dave Brown, they have a root cellar. They call it a root cellar. And on the outside, it just looks like a hill with grass and like there's some old tools and kind of a crappy wooden old door, and then you open
Mhm.
it, you walk inside, and it's this amazing cave, and you look down like 200 feet, and you see all the glasses set out, and there's this awesome
Mhm.
chandeliers and tables, all just in the side of a mountain that look like nothing, and then it's got this cool underground.
Oh yeah, no, that's a great that's I mean that's a perfect example of an experience. The counterpoint to that would be Tank Garage Winery, that has its whole other psychographic profile. They're up in Napa and doing just some incredible things with identifying with that kind of California culture.
So we're getting close to the end. I want to keep going. I got to think of my final question. I usually like to ask like about a morning routine, or if you have new technology you're using. But I'm really curious, like what are you working on? Like what's driving you right now? Like what's motivating you to charge boldly ahead?
Charge, really, a lot of it has to do with AI agents, and we have another sub company called Atomai, which is AI driven human powered, or AI powered human driven. I forgot my own tagline, but the idea there is using that same sort of logical structure that you would find in philosophy in building AI agents to actually take an intake flow. So we're working on one of the biggest things in the medical side. So that idea is building these not products, but building these systems that can be like ramped out. And that's where I'm finding a lot of the key things that's what's getting me up in the morning to do that. We're doing a like an AI intake service for a malpractice firm. And when you run an ad, and we're working with another agency that when we're running an ad, the people call up for thinking that try to get candidates for this class action. They may have to, a human usually has to interview 200 people before they get a lead that's legitimate to add to the class action. Now an AI voice agent can take them through the same sort of questions, score it, and then send the lead that they make. So they can easily scale up. And the actual subject matter isn't what gets me, but it's like seeing the agent actually go through that kind of Socratic dialogue is what really gets me going. I mean, I'm not making a virtual Socrates, but making just following that dialogue. It's incredible.
Wow, that is. And that's one of the things, because one of the big concerns, I've heard this in conversations too, people who are using, is that people were thinking AI would lack empathy, but it seems like it's built in that it's more empathic than the regular humans because it doesn't have its own stuff to get caught up in. Have you found that?
Yeah, I've completely found that. And the other big pushback that I get, especially in the health space, is like, oh, our patient data, we need to be HIPAA compliant. We need to be sure that nothing is ever said that's incorrect that could be in violation. Well, think about who they're hiring at their front desk. They're going to be someone in their early 20s that is taking intake calls that may have the human condition, may ask a question that they don't know that they shouldn't ask, or may give a comment, or may give a prognosis just because it's in our human nature to help.
Yeah.
An AI agent can be put on rails and it's going to remain HIPAA compliant.
Wow. Yeah, I never thought about that. You want the human in healthcare, you want that human element. That's, to me, in like healing, that's the most important part. But you're right. We also make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, in an extreme case, it's someone calling up a therapy office and they're clearly about to do bodily harm to themselves.
Right.
And they need to call 911. And to a human, it's very easy. You should do this. But then the person says, but I do that. And then suddenly the human starts kind of doing a mini therapy session on the phone, which is completely contradictory to what actually needs to happen.
Yeah. Especially if you're the receptionist and not the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. So those are some great, man, this has been awesome, Drew.
This is a fun time.
Yeah, I can't wait. I think you're going to love, I mean, the things you've said, you're going to love my book.
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah. So I put you on the list to get an advanced copy. So you should have got an email from the publisher, but.
Oh yeah, no, I've connected and I'm waiting for my copy, ready to read it.
Awesome. And then we're going to connect again. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. I knew it was going to be good, but it was above my expectations. So this is really cool to connect again like this.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Tao of Pizza podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.